Hi, this is Larry King. You're talking with my good friend, the Hollywood Kid. There's no one like him. Stay tuned.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
And now, a show for retro movie and TV lovers everywhere. Interviews with some of the biggest stars in showbiz.
It's a big W, I tell you! It's a big W!
Real talk with the Hollywood Kid.
Senator, we're both part of the same hypocrisy. But never think it applies to my family.
With Mike DeStasio.
Can you dig it?
And here's your host, the Hollywood Kid.
He's not normal.
No one will ever kill me. They wouldn't dare. Those were the words of mobster Carmine Galante, a Joe Bonanno loyalist who was rarely seen without a cigar in his mouth, leading to the nickname, the cigar. In 1974, after being released from prison following a 12-year spell on narcotics charges, Galante made a power move to take over the Bonanno crime family, a position that he felt was rightfully his after serving as underboss to Joe Bonanno. His first target, just days after being released, was to bomb the bronze doors to the mausoleum of his old enemy and former Genovese boss, Frank Costello, who had died the previous year in 1973. During the next 6 years, Galante would go on to plot the murders of 8 Gambino crime family members in order to take over a massive drug trafficking operation. No love was lost between Galante and the Gambinos, something he also shared with his former boss, Joe Bonanno, both of them despising Carlo Gambino. It was this bold move that would lead to his ultimate demise, but he didn't see it coming. By the late 1970s, Galante felt that he was invincible and untouchable. He was even quoted to say, "No one will ever kill me. They wouldn't dare." But they did dare. A power grab to control the narcotics market despite knowing he would upset the other families wasn't a great move. But to top it off, he didn't share any drug profits with them. At this point, even Joe Bonanno, a boss who Galante was loyal to and held great respect for, would give his approval to the nod on taking Galante out of the equation.
It was a mob hit that rocked the mafia underworld to its core. On the afternoon of July 12th, 1979, self-appointed mob boss Carmine Galante was gunned down along with 2 associates in a hail of bullets while having lunch at Joe and Maria's restaurant in Brooklyn, New York. The iconic photo with the trademark cigar clenched between his teeth splashed across newspapers around the world. On today's show, we will be talking about what led to this sensational assassination of one of the mob's most feared killers. All right, guys, joining me on the show this afternoon to discuss the assassination of Carmine Galante is author Rob Sperner. Rob is an investigative reporter who has written a book on the Lufthansa robbery called The Mystery of the Lufthansa Airlines Heist, which is available on Amazon. Rob also hosts thecrimebeat.com, which is fantastic, guys. Go check it out, thecrimebeat.com. His latest book called House of Horrors, the story of Anthony Sowell, the Cleveland Strangler. That book can be found on Amazon, and that will blow your mind, believe me. He has also written many articles for the very popular website gangstersinc.org. Guys, if you're a mob junkie out there, I know a lot of you are in my audience. Visit gangstersinc.org. Excuse me. It's a fantastic website. It's great. Just go check it out. Rob, first of all, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
But Rob, before we get started, for my audience out there who do not know who Carmine Galante was, tell them a little bit about who he was.
Sure. Let's start at the beginning. Carmine's family was from Castellamare del Golfo in Sicily, birthplace of a lot of famous mobsters, notably, for our purposes, the Bonanno family, which he would end up being unofficially the boss of, self-appointed. So Carmine himself was born in East Harlem, New York, migrated to Brooklyn, where at a very young age got involved in a lot of crime, assaults, petty thefts, always working his way up towards bigger crimes. Served time in reform school. So, he, as a young man, Vito Genovese was deported to Sicily. And Vito Genovese, of course, namesake of a crime family, he was trying to gain favor with Benito Mussolini, the fascist leader of Italy.
Right.
So, in order to do that, he offered to assassinate the publisher of an anti-fascist newspaper in New York. And he recruited Carmine Galante to do that. And Carmine got that job done, and from then on, he was his career in the mob was forged.
Right. In the 1940s, like you say, he quickly moved up the ranks. One of his more sensational murders was the killing of Carlo Tresca. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, exactly. At the behest of Vito Genovese.
Right. So he was. Go ahead.
He was a fearless, tough guy, short guy, but a tough guy. So he goes to prison in 1921. I'm going to divert here real quick, and I saw his psychological report that the psychologist in prison had written up on him, called him a psychopath, remorseless, antisocial. More interestingly, he said he had the IQ of 90. He said in his report he wrote that this is a guy who really probably couldn't function in society at a high level. Well, Carmine contradicted all that, didn't he?
Yeah, pretty much.
So maybe, in place of what we would say brains, obviously he was very street smart. He was savvy. He got a reputation as a fearless killer. He was ruthless, a contract killer. So Joe Bonanno took a liking to him, and that became his protege. When Bonanno was head of his eponymous family, his namesake family, and so Carmine had a lot of powerful connections.
In the late 1950s, early 60s, he was arrested by the FBN, which was the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, and went to jail for 20 years. I mean, he was a big heroin importer.
Bonanno, yes, he was. So, the French Connection, right?
Right.
Ran from the 50s to the 70s. That was a geographic route, a network that shipped heroin from Turkey to Marseille, France, the port of Marseille, and then from there went to Canada and the U.S. Mostly Canada, though, because of the French speaking, the commonality. It was a little easier to get those deeds accomplished there. Joe Bonanno, at that time, most of the crime families in New York shied away from heroin, and probably not for any ethical or moral reasons, just because it was a very tricky business, and the fines and the penalties were very heavy for narcotics, right?
Right.
Well, Joe Bonanno saw the immense profits in heroin. So he sent Galante up to Canada as an intermediary between the Montreal faction of the Bonanno family. And Galante did a good job of getting all the routes set up to the United States. He only lasted 2 years. The Canadian government was on to him. They shipped him back to New York. But by that time, he already had his routes set up, and he knew the business very well.
So now, Rob, we talked about the French Connection, and you described it. They got the heroin correct me if I'm wrong, please, in Sicily, shipped it to Marseille, France. Then I believe went to Milan. And every plane that came into JFK or LaGuardia, especially JFK, there was a suitcase that was tagged but with no name on it, but it was marked specifically for a baggage handler who worked for the mob to grab it and bring it back to the social clubs to disperse it. Is that correct?
Yeah, Yeah, well, I mean, I think they had a lot of ways of shipping it. In some cases, Michael, it went straight from Turkey, the poppy fields of Turkey,
Right.
the opium processing plants there, straight to Marseille, France. And then from there, by boat or plane to various points of destination. So, yeah, probably that scenario you talked about was one way of getting it in here.
Yeah, because that makes sense. And so he gets arrested and he does 20. What's he do? Like 12 years for narcotics trafficking.
Yeah, he got a 20-year sentence. They knocked it down, so he's in prison. Just tell me if I'm, going a little too fast. And
No, that's
stop
fine.
me if I am. He's itching to get back at it, right?
No, I want to interrupt you real quick, but he spent some time in Alcatraz.
Oh, I didn't know that. Did he? I
Yeah,
did not know that.
Before he went to Lewisburg.
Oh, interesting.
I could be wrong.
So, yeah, no, he may have, yeah. So, anyhow, he gets out of prison. Now, at this time, Bonanno and his kid, his son, had been kicked out of the mob because they had tried to take over the commission. So, there was a series of leaders. It finally settled on a guy named Philip Rastelli. Okay? Rastelli himself has spent most of his adult life in prison. But pretty strong boss, a lot of loyal factions, so he's able to get a lot accomplished from behind bars. So he's in prison. Carmine gets out of prison, comes to back to New York, and now he's got a plan. He sets up a subset of his own mob family by using zips, Sicilian guys that he imported here from his hometown in Sicily. So, I mean, one of the advantages, of course, of being in the mob is you have a network, you have protection, you have that sort of family. He didn't need it. He didn't need the cooperation of the conventional mob family. He had his own family that he trusted. So he was running. He reopened his drug routes. He's doing a huge business in. The numbers are staggering if they can be believed. Running drugs into New York. So, because he's not using the mob, he's doing his own thing, he's not picking up. He's not sharing. Not only that, but every time there was a threat to him, like from the Gambino family, to get him in order, get him, straightened out, he'd kill him. I think I read somewhere he killed 8 members of the Gambino family. So, got to be a little too much. They saw the obscene profits he was making. He wasn't sharing. He didn't feel he needed to. And this all led up to Rastelli requesting permission to have him killed.
I want to circle back real quick if I can, Rob. Now, you mentioned the zips. Now these zips he recruited from his home, from Sicily.
Yes.
These zips were not like an American mafia hitman. These guys were serious killers. They would kill women, children, police, judges. It didn't really matter. And they were very fiercely loyal, to whoever they were working for.
Long tradition of crime as a profession.
Right.
Absolutely.
So one of the reasons why I went there to grab these zips was because of their loyalty.
Yes, exactly.
Just to show my audience out there the type of psychopath this guy was. So he gets out of Lewisburg in Pennsylvania. And he quickly orders, now correct me if I'm wrong, he quickly orders the tombstone of one-time New York Mafia chief Frank Costello to be blown up in pieces. Do you know about that?
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, yes, I did read that. Absolutely. So here's a guy just seething and simmering in his own juices in prison for, 12 years? Right.
And he pretty, like you say, here's a guy who, is doing a lot of damage in New York and all in Sicily and everything. And he appoints himself as the capo di tutti capi, the boss of all bosses. And that'll pretty much get anybody killed just for talking like that.
Right. Correct. Very cocky, very narcissistic, obviously. Not afraid of anything. I guess that's what it takes, right?
Right.
But,
I mean, that I guess on your death certificate.
Yeah, right. So probably, I'm assuming charismatic also. He was able to surround himself with people who are willing to follow him. Maybe out of fear. I mean, I've read. I mean, he was an accomplished killer. God, he had.
He killed a cop early on, didn't he?
Shot a cop. Yeah, he seemed to get. Yeah, he seemed to get out of those cases. Right. Maybe. In fact. Yeah, the case. I don't know if it was the Cone case or not, but he goes to trial, or he gets indicted, and the foreman of the jury falls down the stairs and decides he doesn't want to testify. He doesn't want to participate in the trial anymore. Right. So intimidation, of course.
Right. Like the I forgot on the New York Post. Remember?
Right.
The guy in the witness stand. I forget. I don't know. You can't blame these people either.
Right.
And these guys are fearless.
Yeah. So I think. So, but anyhow, he's still, even in the 50s, right? He still has a lot of powerful friends. Bonanno, that meeting in Palermo, right?
Right.
Lucky Luciano was there. So they're getting the network going. But of course, as they're getting the network going, he's the point man. Now, also, Galante. Another reason that made him very valuable to the mob for these endeavors is he spoke a lot of Italian dialects. Not only that, but he had a mastery of French too. So he could go to France and he could communicate with these people, and he was getting things accomplished. But at a certain point, he was cutting out the various people that he was partnering with.
Right. Yeah, he was a psychopath. Rob, I want to talk a little bit about Rostelli's. He plotted with the Gambinos and the Genovese family to bump off Galante in a spectacular fashion. His murder was to be a statement. The commission's word is the word of God, no questions asked. So they got the two families.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't mean to talk over you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. There's a little lag. There's a little lag when we're talking, so I didn't realize you were. Yeah, but keep going. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the two families actually got together just to kill this guy because they couldn't stand him. And they want to make this a powerful statement.
Yeah, okay, correct. So, first of all, before we go to there, what's interesting to these mob stories to me is actually the footnotes, the characters involved. I find it fascinating because I can't think of a more treacherous enterprise than being in the mob, shifting loyalties, who you trust. You're a marked man immediately. You get too powerful, you're marked. You screw up once, maybe you're marked. So in that first trial that we talked about in the early 60s, right, his co-defendant was Billy Batts. Billy Batts was the guy that was killed by Tommy DeSimone.
Goodfellas.
Made famous in Goodfellas, right. So, big power grab by Galante, right? And he's a threat to Rostelli. Rostelli's in prison, but still getting the job. Finally, the order comes down. We got to get rid of this guy. They approached the commission. Even Joe Bonanno said, yeah, get rid of him, right? So, July 12th, 1979, Joe and Mary's Italian-American luncheonette in Bushwick, Brooklyn.
If I can stop you there real quick, Rob. If I can stop you there real quick. Galante used to go around telling people that no one will, quote, no one will ever kill me. They wouldn't dare. You can take it from there.
He's there with the owner, who is a cousin of his, and another capo, Bonanno capo. And Cesar Bonventre and Baldo Amato. Those were his bodyguards.
Those are the Zips from Sicily.
Those were the Zips.
Those are the hardcore loyalists.
At a point in time, I think just as he actually had finished his lunch or was lighting his cigar, they crouch down, and 3 gunmen come in, and some, pistols. I think there was a machine gun involved, and killed Galante. And of course, that famous photograph of him laying on his back with a cigar, because his nickname was Lilo, which is a Sicilian word for the cigar. He's laying there with the cigar still in his lips, still in his mouth, right? Mm. So this is where the story really gets interesting to me. One of the killers was Bruno Indelicato, the son of Alphonse Indelicato, a pretty powerful capo of the Bonanno family. And according to everything I've read, the 2 guys that really set up the hit were Sonny Black Napolitano and Sonny Red Indelicato, 2 capos, so that at the time were working together and were loyal to Restelli at that time. So Galante's out of the way. The next day, there's photos and footage of Bruno Indelicato being congratulated outside of social clubs in New York. He got
I believe one of them was the Ravenite.
Possibly, yeah. He was he was promoted to a crew boss after that hit. Hmm. If that story is true, right?
Right.
So now his death removed a problem. Greed, over excessive power, but it created a power vacuum. With him gone, now there's a full-fledged power struggle for the Bonanno family, which at the time was a very respected family. Since its inception, no made man in the Bonannos had ever flipped, had ever informed. Well, that was all going to change in the coming years. So now you got a power struggle between people that were loyal to Restelli, Sonny Black, for example, and then 3 capos who wanted to take over, one of them being Alphonse Indelicato. Hmm. So we got that situation.
So the assassins, the guys who did the killings, what happened to them in terms of who went to jail? Did anybody go to jail?
Only one of them ever did, Bruno Indelicato. He got caught up in some other stuff, and they got him on that murder. But he's the only one. He's currently in prison now.
I think is Baldo Amato. I think he's currently in jail right now on an unrelated murder charge.
Yeah, and Cesar Boventre, I think 1984. They killed him, but they kind of botched it. They were supposed to get rid of the body, but they cut it up, put it in acid, and they were able to find the remains.
Wow. Wow. Now, why did they kill him?
2 stories. One is that they wanted to keep his mouth shut about the murder, but more likely, Joe Messino was angry at him. Joe Messino ended up being the boss of the Bonanno family. Didn't feel. Actually, Restelli. I'm sorry. Restelli didn't feel that Boventre was paying tribute to Restelli's family while he was in prison. He wasn't kicking in the money like he should have.
Rob, normally when a big mafia guy dies, there's a lot of respect paid to him at their funeral, their wakes, or whatever. That wasn't the case with Galante.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Yeah, 'cause I don't think not too many people showed up for his funeral. He was a very nobody really liked him in the families.
No.
Not at all. Can't imagine. I don't think they were getting Christmas cards from him.
Yeah, very greedy.
Rob, real quick, I mentioned in your intro, you wrote a book about their Lufthansa heist made famous by the Goodfellas. Touch on that a little bit if you can.
Okay. So now we got, so let's go back. Let's back up a little bit. We got the Joe Messino, rising star. He's going to take over the Bonanno family because Restelli just couldn't get out of prison. He kept getting in trouble, right? So he sees there's now he's still loyal to Restelli with designs on power himself. The 3 capos that wanted to oppose him, he called them to a meeting, and had them killed. One of them was Alphonse Delicato, Sonny Red. And Sonny Red was supposed to bring his son, Bruno, who was one of the killers of Galante, but at the time, Alphonse maybe felt things were a little too dangerous, left him at home, brought a guy named Frank Lino instead. Frank Lino's an interesting guy. He had a very long career in the mob. He survived a lot. So anyhow, they get the guys in the basement of a bar, and they kill all three of them. Now, Bruno and Delicato survived and vows vengeance. Now, to get rid of the bodies, they turned to John Gotti, who, as a favor to the Bonanos, buried them in a Gambino graveyard. But he didn't do a great job. They ended up finding some of the bodies. But for some reason, so now we got Bruno and Delicato still out there, angry, looking for revenge, right? I mean, he's another guy who, very short fuse, killed many, many people, seemed to enjoy it if what's written about him is true. So they decide, Messino, they got to get rid of him, right? They give the order to kill him to Donnie Brasco. Donnie Brasco is the FBI agent played by, Joe Pistone, real name,
correct. Right.
Who infiltrated the Bonanno family. So, of course, now he gets an order to kill somebody. He's not going to do it, but he knows if he doesn't do it, he's just revealing that he's not really loyal. So that's when Brasco blew everything up, turned him in, and the Bonanos really took that, really demolished that family. Took a lot of people down. Sonny Black was killed for his involvement. So now Lufthansa. We'll go to that. We'll move to that story. Lufthansa, $6 million. Lufthansa airline heights was 1978, JFK Airport. At the time, the biggest robbery in the United States up until that time. So it was engineered by a guy named Jimmy Burke. Obviously not a mob member, but an associate and a big earner.
Played by the De Niro character in Goodfellas. Go ahead.
Yes. Hijacker, just involved drugs. Really a big earner for the mob. So he put together his crew. Henry Hill was not a part of the crew, but he was involved. He knew everybody. And they take down Lufthansa. They take the money. The money was never recovered. Money and jewels. They maybe found some of the jewels, but they never recovered the money. So now the Bonanos, Joe Mastino gets arrested, and in the 90s, and facing life in prison, he decides to flip. Like one of the first sitting bosses that ever flipped, that ever became an informant. Once the boss flips, a lot of the Bonanos just caved, turned informants. One of them was a capo named Dominic Sicali. He was good friends with Bruno and Delicato. Bruno, who, by the way, married Jimmy Burke's daughter, Kathy. Okay? So, Dominic, I met him through a third party. We talked. He was an informant.
Did you meet him at Rails? No,
I could never get in Rails.
Me too.
Just talked to him on the phone. Dominic tells me that he knew what happened to Lufthansa's money. Jimmy gave it to his daughters, Robin and Kathy. Kathy ran a jewelry store. She owns a jewelry store. Robin had a no-show job as a school bus driver. So, Bruno and Vinny Bacciano, who at the time was a street boss of the Bonanos, and ended up being the acting boss of the family when Messino got arrested. They know the money's in a safe at Kathy's house. Well, Kathy's pretty savvy, pretty smart. She's not going to give them access to the safe, even though she's married to Bruno. So they sweet talk Robin into letting him into the safe by saying they were going to invest in a movie, and they had plans, and they were going to put the money back, and it was just a loan. So they treat this safe as their own private bank account. $2 to $4 million in there. They go dipping into it. They did put $250,000 into a movie, about an animated movie about ferrets that they thought was going to be a big hit. But most of the money went to this casino. Vinny Bacciano had a gambling habit. So, like 2004, so Kathy Burke, checks the safe, finds out the money's gone. She's furious. Shortly after that, Bruno went to prison, where he is now. Let's go back to Frank Lino for a second.
Okay.
Frank Lino, his entire family, grandfather, father, cousins, everybody was in the mob. This guy was like mob royalty. In fact, he was a made man, a member of 4 different families throughout his career. He escaped the murder of those 3 captains in the basement. Somehow he got away. Joe Messino, instead of killing him, said, join my crew. Frank Lino then was the guy they recruited to kill Sonny Black as punishment for bringing Donnie Brasco into the family.
Right.
Yeah. So Frank's very involved with these guys. He's got a fascinating story. We're off track here a little bit. Galante's gone. Joe Messino, by all accounts, did a great job of rebuilding the Bonanno family. He did it by maintaining a low profile. Not talking, not wearing flashy clothes, never allowing his men to mention his name. If they wanted to refer to him, they had to point to their ear. So he builds the family back up, but gets tapped, gets caught, and that was the end of that. Pretty much the end of the Bonanno family.
Amazing, fascinating story, and like you said, that that picture of when Galante was killed. I mean, everybody saw that picture all around the world, and the cigar, that trademark like cigar, is still in his mouth, and it's amazing. And he was quite the maniac, and you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Absolutely.
And
they wouldn't have it any other way, right?
Right. Rob, where can people get your books?
Pardon me?
Where can people get your books?
Amazon. Everyth's on Amazon, of course.
And what are you working on now, Rob?
I actually I'm in talks to have a episodic series developed around a serial killer book I wrote called House of Horse. The networks are really clamoring for true crime.
Yeah, it seems to be a big thing nowadays. Even with a lot of my podcasts, I'm starting to segue into a lot of true crime as well.
Writing is very tough. I mean, there's no money in it. You devote a lot of your life to it. There really isn't much of a payoff. People just don't have the patience to read a book anymore. They'd rather watch something on the tube, television. Right. So they're adapting a lot of these true crime stories into documentaries and shows.
Yeah, it's very popular nowadays, and there's a lot of networks, the ID network, and you see all the 48 hours on the television as well. It's just it's really popular right now. And Rob, how can people get in touch with you?
I have a website, www.robertsperna, SBERNA.com, so they can look over some stuff there, and there's an email. But yeah. I really appreciate you having me on. This was interesting talking.
That's interesting.
I apologize for the coughing.
No, that's okay. It's okay. And like we talked off the air, you have to be pretty precise with this kind of dialogue because there are some mafia junkies out there that will correct you.
Oh, these guys, they know. They're good. They're up on their stuff. I don't even present myself as an expert. I'm not, of course. But, yeah, they're a very enthusiastic bunch.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. And, everybody needs a hobby, I guess.
Yes. Maybe more than that. It's almost like a calling, really.
Yeah, you see a lot of guys online, and, I put some stuff out once in a while, and you get some flack for it, and it's like, whoa. But they are precise. Yeah,
they will correct you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they're like sharks. They you got to have your stuff prepared, and then you got to know what you're talking about, what era, what day, what street, what year. You got to know everything. It's pretty funny. All right, Robert, this has been great, and I appreciate your time. And guys, check out Rob Sberna, SBRNA, and check out thecrimebeat.com.
Actually, Michael, it's SBERNA. I don't know if that matters.
Okay, SBERNA. Sorry.
Thank you very much for having me on. It was very enjoyable.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Rob. And take care of that. Take care of those allergies, man.
Got to. Now is not a good time to be caught.